Do you need to bifurcate in order to compete in the bankruptcy industry? I'm here with Lars Olsen, principal of Olsen Danes Law Firm in Oregon. Lars, how you doing?
Good, Phil.
You're watching 720 System Strategies, the #1 YouTube channel for bankruptcy attorneys.
You retain somewhere between 160 and 200 clients per month, and you don't bifurcate at all. It's the full paid in full model, right?
Correct. Go. And for our business model, we don't use that. We have 11 offices through the state. We provide free consultations to our clients, either in person, over Zoom, or over the phone. And we don't just provide one free consultation. We call it continued free consultations until all of their questions are answered. And then we follow up with these leads. If we determine that they need bankruptcy services, we'll have our intake team continue to reach out to them by email and by phone. We can be retained as their attorney for $400. At that point, they can start referring their creditors over to us and give them our name and number and simply state that Olsen Danes Law Firm is now representing me. Here's their name and number. My attorney's instructed me not to pay you. Talk to my lawyer. When those calls come into our office, we'll let the creditors know that we're representing that individual or couple in a bankruptcy proceeding, but we don't file the case until all of our fees are paid in full.
And
And
let's talk about that.
sure,
Let's unpack this nice and slow. So first of all, what do you charge for a seven? Is the same statewide, same fee?
it does, depending on the complexity of the case, I would
Okay.
say $2,000 to $2,500 would be the range.
Okay. So you're not the cheapest in the state, clearly, right? At that
We
at
are
that price.
not the cheapest in the state, and we're also not the most expensive.
Right.
I would say
So
our fees are fairly typical for what we see.
how often do you have clients talk to you and bring up and say, I can retain them for less? I can retain this client for $99 or $200. Do you ever get that? Do you hear that?
We don't. We recently raised it from 200 to 400, but we don't get those relief. What we tell the clients is they can stop paying on their credit cards, medical bills, and collection agencies and take the money that they would normally be paying on those bills and pay it to us over the next few months. And that's
Mhm.
typically enough money to get them to what we need to file the bankruptcy to have the fees paid in full.
Moving from 200 to 400, there was zero pushback on that.
We were at 200 for the last 15 years. And so when we went to 400, it's been about 2 months now, and we haven't
Mhm.
seen the pushback on that.
That's good to
Again,
know.
yeah. So we're at $400 now to be retained as the attorney.
Do you ever, because Oregon's like big into bifurcation, a lot of attorneys bifurcate. Do you
Mhm.
ever have a client say, well, this attorney's going to file my case now and I can make payments afterwards?
I don't hear that as much. I mean, when they call us, they're in the need for bankruptcy attorney. We provide that 15-minute to 30-minute consultation with them. We explain to them how the bankruptcy process works and what we can do and how that 30 or 40 or $50,000 worth of credit card debt can be wiped out.
Mm.
We explain to them our fees will be $2,400 plus the court filing fee of $338. That we can be retained on board as their attorney for $400. That would come off the 2,400, bring it down to $2,000. And then the clients can make payments to us over the next few months until that balance of $2,000 and the court fee is paid. At that point, we'll file the case in the courthouse window, and we cannot file the case until the fees are paid in full. And so, this time of year, a lot of clients pay us in full out of their tax refund if that's available to them, or if they have the access to a 401k loan or an IRA withdrawal or family or friends or employer assistance. But no, we've stayed away from the bifurcation. It's made it a lot easier. It's made it a lot easier on our
Oh,
staff when you're having to do a fast filing or skeleton filing first and then follow that up with deficiency documents a couple weeks later. That puts a lot of toll and stress and a lot of headaches on your staff and paperwork and documents.
especially when it's hard to find people, right? I mean,
Right.
you're
I mean,
building
in
out the
terms of
business.
employees, correct.
Yeah,
And then a lot of times, we always ask for all the documents up front, Phil. We need the tax returns, the pay stubs, the bank statements. We need that all up front
of course.
because once the case is filed, of course, the pressure's off the client and they're a lot less willing to get documents to us that we need. So we ask for everything up front in terms of documentation.
I think there's a conversation in the mind of the debtor attorney that is trying to build market share, and they think the client or the debtor understands what file now means versus, hire now. I mean, I think you're proving that. over 20% of the retains in Oregon, and you're in a pro bifurcation market, and it's like no, 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 and you're just explaining what you need, and the debtor really doesn't think about that. I mean, as long as they get the phone call to stop ringing, right?
Correct.
Like
Correct.
that's the key.
And to have them, once they pay the $400, they can refer them over to our office. And we tell the clients, we'll say the creditors may ask you, are you filing for bankruptcy? And you can say, yes, I am. Contact Lars Olsen or Rex Danes of Olsen Danes Law Firm. They've instructed me not to pay you. Talk to my lawyer. I've got to do what my lawyer says. I don't understand the process. Talk to my lawyer. And that's what they're looking for, is that immediate sense of relief. And typically, if they're paying two, three, $400 a month on these credit card bills, and it's typically a lot more than that, it only takes a few months for them to be able to file bankruptcy. Sometimes they will have a friend or family member that will pay for their bankruptcy on their credit card,
Mhm.
not the debtor's credit card, but the friends or relatives' credit card. And they can go ahead and pay them down the road. If that's a loan, we can list them in the bankruptcy, or it's a gift to them to get them the relief that they need.
What percentage of that time does that happen? Just out of curiosity, in your experience, does they have someone else pay for their bankruptcy?
Oh, quite often, I would say 30, 40%.
Okay, that's big.
I
30,
mean,
40% of the
uh,
time someone paying
yeah,
for their thing.
20 to 40%, correct.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range, especially to have a relative come in. A lot of times the relatives will come in with the debtors to the appointment.
Lars, let's talk about your payment plan. Okay. So they put
Mhm.
400 down to stop the call so they can actually, so will you retain them for less or they have $400 to retain?
$400 to retain. Like I said,
Okay.
Phil, we just
Just
basically
moved it.
just
Yeah.
recently moved it from 200 to 400. It's been 200 for the last 15 years. Before that, it was $50. But we want them to feel like they have some skin in the game, that they've made an investment. And so we recently raised it from 200 to 400.
And now you're at 400. How long out will you allow them to make payments?
As long as they need. We don't set up a formal payment plan. We tell them they can make payments on our website or over the phone or in person at any of our 11 offices, but that we make clear to them we won't file the case until the fees are paid in full. From the time a debtor stops paying on their credit obligations to the time they face a lawsuit, at least here in Oregon, we experience that time is about 9 to 10 months. And
Okay.
we advise them of that and say, listen, we need to get this bankruptcy filed because this won't stop an eventual garnishment or lawsuit, but that could be 9 or 10 months down the road. So we tell them the goal is to get that paid before then. But most clients have it paid before the 9 or 10 months. Occasionally, we'll have the client that retained us 2 or 3 years ago contact us and say, hey, I'm getting garnished now. And we'll say, John, you retained us 3 years ago. You paid us, $600, but we need to get the balance of the fees before we can actually get the case filed. And they understand that. And a lot of times, they're looking themselves in the mirror and they understand that and they're scrambling at that point to come up with the balance of the fees to get the case filed.
You say, okay, on your payday, we're going to take $50 or $100.
We've looked at that and we've tried it. And, I guess in a sense, we don't want to become one more bill collector to the debtors because they're still struggling getting their finances in a row. We want to be more of their ally and on the same team with them instead of being another bill collector saying, oh,
Right.
you got a contract here, you got to pay $50 every 2 weeks. And then we'd have to hire additional staff there just to track those
Right.
payments, to be making those phone calls. And then the clients would be calling in and saying, well, I need to skip a payment this month
Right.
or I can't pay this month. It'd be a lot more resources on our end to just follow up with that. If they
Mhm.
know that we have to have this entire amount to file the case, we do have our case managers who follow up with them, but not on a regimented pay scale. We have case managers that follow up with them every 4 to 8 weeks during the process in terms of the documents we need and the payments we need. And they're suggesting, alternatives in terms of payments. Well, tax season's coming up. Maybe you have a tax refund coming in that you'll be able to use to help pay for the bankruptcy. Have you explored this option or this option or this option to move the bankruptcy faster along? And they remind them saying, this won't stop an eventual garnishment. So the goal is to get the case filed in the next 10 months or so before we have to worry about that.
So before we go to the case manager, I would just want to tie on this payment thing for a second. What type of software do you use for, do you notify people consistently as a reminder for payment? Or is it really opaque of like hey, pay us when you can? like hands off, or is there a text that goes out or an email? Hey, reminder, you got to make the payment. Because I
Well,
just, debtors, they forget, right? We're dealing with this part of the society that just is overwhelmed. And sometimes, sort of like we do with our kids, we need to like coach them up a little bit, like help them, give them a hand up. Not to be another collector, but do you see where I'm going with this?
right, right. And so far, until we're retained, we do use the Rainmaker software program for that, which sends out drip emails to them for a period of several months. But once we're retained, at that point, it's our case managers,
Case
and we have,
manager.
yep, a case manager. They're really in have control of that case until it's filed.
Okay,
And we
so,
we have about seven case managers.
okay.
And so they're actively calling and emailing, but we don't use a formal plan to track that.
So the case managers, how many cases do one case manager manage?
Well, if we're filing 150 cases a month, that would probably be somewhere around 30 to 40 a month.
Okay. And basically they're, hey, I'm introducing myself. My name is John or
Mhm.
Joelle, and I'm your case manager to help you through the process. They email them, they may text them. Like what does that process look like to get them from yes, I've retained, paid you $400 to keep the process going to file?
Well, just what you said, to keep that communication open. I've done this for 35 years ago, and early in my career, we'd have clients would call back and say, "Well, I've retained you. I've never heard back from my attorney, or I've never heard anything
Mm.
now for 6 months or 12 or 18 months, and I never had any communication." We don't get those anymore. The case manager follows up because that case manager is going to own the case until it's filed, and then they're done with it. It's moved on to the paralegal, so they have a
Oh.
psychological incentive to get that case off their plate. The sooner that case is filed, the sooner they're not working it anymore. And so they're motivated to get that case down the pipeline to where they don't have to be calling John and Betty Jones anymore to get that case filed.
Oh, so this is great. So this is the case manager keeps it until all the docs are collected and it's paid in full.
Absolutely. It's
And
kind of
then
the
they
Henry
hand it to the
Henry Ford
paralegal.
assembly line, Phil. We have a legal assistant who does the intake. It's really an intake specialist. They own the case until we've actually been retained. So they could be following up with John and Betty Jones for 3, 6, 12, 18 months
Mhm.
until, we're actually retained and on board. And then they're done with the file. They're no longer using it. It moves on to the case manager. That case manager could have the case for anywhere from a day or two to several months or a year or so until all the fees have been paid in full and we have all the documents we need to file. Once that case is filed, then it's moved on to the paralegal that owns that case during the duration it's in an open bankruptcy proceeding.
Now, do you and Rex and Matthew take the initial calls, or is there one person before the legal assistant?
No, the receptionists take the inbound calls. They transfer them as quickly as they can within 10, 20 seconds to our legal intake team. We have four intake specialists.
Got it. Okay.
They spend about 5 to 10 minutes going through the qualifying questions. They set up the free initial consultation with one of our bankruptcy attorneys. We have 6 attorneys here in the firm that do
I
nothing
see.
but bankruptcy.
And then you guys hand it off to the case manager. Case manager manages it, but only if case manager only gets it if they're retained. If they're not,
Correct.
they don't have the $400, it goes back to the legal assistant to follow up.
Absolutely correct.
Love it. Love it. And how many times are they talking to an attorney? If they talk to you, they go back legal assistant. Do they ever come back to you, or is it from there to the case manager?
We believe in karma. You do the right thing. And we always want to be accessible to clients. I tell initial clients at the intake, if you ever have, we're doing this, most all of our cases are on a flat fee. If ever you have a question, call and set up a phone appointment with me. I may not be available right then, but you can call and
Mm.
set up a phone or office appointment with me. I want to be accessible to the clients. But, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, the case manager can answer any routine questions. But if something comes up and they want an appointment with me, the client's always right. If they call in
Yeah.
and they're speaking with the legal assistant or receptionist or the case manager and they want to speak with Lars Olsen,
You'll
our
do it.
staff is instructed to make the appointment with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lars, what about fall offs, like from people who retain that cancel and ask for their money back? Do you have any stats on that?
I don't have any stats. We do have it, and they come in every week. And It's always for a different reason. Maybe they've moved out of state. Maybe a family member's helped them out with a job. Maybe they think they no longer need bankruptcy and they really do. And I'm sure sometimes maybe they found an attorney that's willing to do it with a bifurcated fees. And I don't hear that very often, but I'm sure there are cases like that. The process of doing the flat fee has been so much easier for us to track. It's one less headache that we have to manage. And, if there we don't have to hire a collection specialist, Phil,
Oh
after a
yeah.
case is filed to try to chase
Well,
down our fee
yeah.
and sue or try to collect on those. I don't want to go there.
Yeah. Well,
That's
not
just
only that, the amount of work it takes. I mean, I've
yeah,
had clients have bifurcated for years and moved back to the pay in full model, and the time savings of
yeah.
just not having to refile and changing things, or I don't know if it's considered refiling, but you start with the skeleton and then you move back to a different type of fulfill the case or whatever you call it.
In today's market, reviews are everything, and we've
Yeah.
appreciated over the last 15 years our partnership with you and
Yeah.
720 and everything you guys do to support our practice. You've been a huge part of our success, but reviews are everything. And it's nice to tell clients, once they paid the fee, there's done. There's no hidden costs. There's no extra charges. We don't charge extra for reaffirmation. We tell clients if something comes up 2 or 3 years down the road, if you have a question about something related to your bankruptcy or finances, call us, come in and see us. We want to make sure that they feel that we're always accessible for them and we're not going to be nickel and diming them. Yes, they have to pay their fee up front, but once they do that, hey, we're on board. We're their new best friend. And unfortunately, a lot of clients come to us that, used our services 10 or 20 years ago, but they come back to us.
Yeah, the debtor, they're not necessarily they don't know as much about bankruptcy as I think debtor attorneys think they do. And they're coming in, you're like, hey, this is a situation. Come up with $400. And you moved it from 50 to 200 to 400, and you don't even feel the difference at this point. I mean, it's been 2 months, but you don't even feel the difference between 200 and 400. You haven't bifurcated ever, and you still
No,
command over 20% of the market in Oregon. I mean,
we
it's
do.
very meaningful. I mean, I just
Yeah.
think this is really important that for those that are on the fence of bifurcating or struggling with bifurcation, keeping it up, they need to understand this.
Right. And it's not like we have a lot of competition in Oregon.
I know, yeah.
Everybody does these days with Zoom 341A meeting, but as we've talked about before, it's not a race to the bottom for us. We want to provide excellent services, and we think for clients that they get the best quality services with Olsen Danes with what we provide. We're always going to be here for them to help them, even if they have, like I said, questions 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road.
You're a giant in the industry. Your firm does the right thing over and over. Anything else you want to say?
One thing I know you and I've talked about is a lot of times we determine that clients don't need bankruptcy because they're on Social Security or disability benefits of some time or retirement benefits, and they're judgment proof and they have no reason to file bankruptcy. And I think it's really a disservice to our industry to try to get those people in to file bankruptcy. Shame on you or shame on the bankruptcy attorney trying to get those people in when they're really judgment proof. And a lot of times they're elderly, they're in their 70s, maybe even their 80s. There's no reason for them to having to pay, $2,000 to file a bankruptcy. And that's where we refer them over to the HELPS program, the Help
We do
Eliminate
too.
Legal Problems for Seniors, because I think close to half of those cases that the Helps law firm does, they do for free, and the other half they charge like $20 a month. It's a very nominal amount, and that's really what they need. They need a law firm to represent them for the letters and the phone calls and bills to end. But there's no reason for that 82-year-old single person in Tennessee to file bankruptcy when they're living off $1,000 a month in Social Security.
Absolutely. We'll have the helps information in the description. I'm glad you brought that up. You're absolutely right. We talked about that. So that's even more reason. You're commanding 20% of the market. You're not filing anybody who's uncollectible. And it happens a lot in our industry, sadly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it shouldn't be happening. It's
Yeah.
it's not a good reflection upon the legal practice when cases are being filed for people that don't need to.
So for those struggling with bifurcation, whether I continue to do it or should I be doing it, here's proof that bifurcation is not needed to command a big piece of the market share. Thanks, Lars.
Thanks, Phil.